Here we go. And we're back this time on time.
That's right.
Thanks to our media team behind the scenes who worked tirelessly. What would have been cool last week is to see a camera on us trying to get this thing working last week. It was something, I tell you what. But it worked. Again, Mr. Tyler Hirth, the rock star of Long Hollow Media Online. And Tyler, by the way, if you don't know, he's the one who makes Sunday morning happen. Him and Timmy come in every Sunday, and while we're home watching and connecting online from home, they're at the studio. So thank you guys for working so hard. We are thankful for you and appreciative. But we're here today. This could be, I'm just going to say it, our favorite study yet. In fact, I want to encourage you, if you know somebody not tuned in right now, do me a favor and text them or email them or say, hey, listen, you want to see tonight, because I'm going to make a promise.
A promise.
I'm going to make a promise. Tonight, you will never, hands down, look at the life of Joseph the same again. I'm going to go ahead on a limb and say that. In a good way. In a good way.
Okay.
Okay? Now, before we get started, a couple things I want to talk about. We got some questions from last week.
Okay.
First of all, an announcement for Sunday. Believe it or not, Sunday we're going to do a little something different for Mother's Day. And I've invited someone to join me at the table at a special location. It's going to be an awesome location. And that person who's going to be with me on the platform, if you will, in the sermon is Candy Gallaty.
Yay.
So Candy Gallaty will be joining us and speaking and giving insights and theological truths and application points and funny stories.
We definitely got those.
And maybe funny faces. And a funny laugh. A good laugh. I like that laugh. I like that one. The question is, will you amen me while I'm preaching?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, I normally amen you even from like when I'm sitting, when we were in worship center, you know, but I'm just not doing it like super
Can't go loud. Yeah, you
yeah.
can't go loud. You may be invited back if you do that.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let's do a couple questions today. So that's Sunday. You're not going to want to miss that for Mother's Day. All right, couple questions. Again, if you want to log some questions, you can send them through YouTube. You can put them in the chat. You can email us. Is that right, Jonathan? Can they email us?
Yep. Robby.Gallaty.
You can go right to me. Robby.Gallaty@longhollow.com. Excuse me, Robby.Gallaty@longhollow.com. Okay, here's a question we had from 2 weeks ago, and these are just random questions, and so we'll see. We'll just take a few of these, and we'll get into our Joseph study because we got a lot to cover tonight. But I want to get these because they're a few weeks old. I was wondering, when Jesus told the criminal on the cross that you will be with me in paradise, was that still Abraham's bosom? We talked about this a couple weeks ago. In Sheol at the time. And so if we go back, let's see if we still have it here. Talked about so many things. Here we go. I knew it was here. Okay. If you remember this a couple weeks ago, we talked about how in the Old Testament, when a person died, they didn't go to hell. They went to a place called Sheol, which actually had two sides. Okay. It's kind of this place where they were resting and waiting till the Messiah came. On one side, you had Hades, or Gehenna, and on the other side, you had Abraham's bosom or Abraham's side, okay? So the question is, and this is a good question. I'm going to ask Candy.
Oh, gosh.
I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you first, okay? So if you're there, Jonathan, do we have our responses, or are we still getting it loaded?
We're getting it loaded.
Okay, getting it loaded. Okay, here's the question. What do you think? Do you think when the thief on the cross died and Jesus said, today you're going to be with me in paradise, where did he go? The question is, did he go to Abraham's side in Sheol?
Well, the question would be...
Okay, they're saying there's no sound. There's no sound. Text just came in.
That there's
no sound. So if there's no sound...
then they can't hear you.
It's on Facebook. Audio's working great at Long Hollow website or Apple TV.
What?
I'm playing. We do have.
Do we have sound?
I don't know. I'm talking right now. I was just messing with him. See. Okay.
Do we-
Go to Long Hollow's website.
Okay. Long Hollow's website.
Comment on Facebook.
Can't hear you, Pastor. No sound. Apparently, we've got technical difficulties for the second week in a row. Take back everything I said about Tyler.
No.
No, I'm playing. Okay, apparently we have to go to Facebook Live. So somebody has to make a announcement on whatever channels people cannot hear on. Hold on.
Colin's on it.
Apparently,
I wonder why the
Facebook
is it,
Live.
So it's not our mic, it's something else.
There is no sound. Lead team. There is sound. Colin Wood, there is sound.
So now it's working?
Website is fine. Okay. Apparently there's no sound on something else.
On Facebook.
There's no sound on Facebook
Or YouTube.
or
So
YouTube.
go to the
Well,
church website.
Okay,
and watch.
website.
Someone was saying they just tried the church website. And it wouldn't work.
Can't try the church
Not working on
website.
YouTube.
Apple TV is fine.
Okay, not working on YouTube or Facebook Live. Okay, don't worry, somebody's getting fired after this. But anyway, so I'm playing.
Right. That's
I'm
not funny.
playing. That's not even funny. It's not even funny. But I will say this: next week we are no longer going to be here in the home because it's a whole lot easier to do it at the church. So we're going to set up this system at the church, and then we're going to go right to the church and record. Okay.
So we need to start over because nobody heard anything that you said.
Mama.
It's a Facebook issue.
Okay.
Really? But it's then how
This is Colin.
how is it on YouTube too?
Tell Colin, of course, it's not an issue on our end. It's always a Facebook. That's what we do lately nowadays. If it's bad.
Huh?
This is Colin's go-to thing, by the way. I'm just going to call it out because those who watch and know this. Whenever there's a problem, blame it on Facebook. That's all we do nowadays, you know. We blame it on Facebook.
Hello.
Okay, so what are they saying? Can your message start from the beginning? Okay,
Yes.
what we're talking about so far up to this point.
Wait, are we working now?
Sorry for the sound issues.
Roku. Is it Roku or
Roku or Roku?
Roku is good to go.
Somebody said they still can't read lips. Okay. So apparently you need to send them to the church website. Is that what we're going to do? Somebody typed, Candice, can you type from me?
Me?
Yeah, please.
Right now?
Just to show people we're actually live.
Okay.
Say, can you go to the church website? Somebody says messing with. I was messing with you. That is true. Okay. Someone take Robbie's phone away. That came to me. No, I saw that. I see that, right?
Oh, it says can hear on.
Hold on.
website.
Here he is. Colin Wood. Turn your TV down, please. Turn your TV down, please. Okay, Colin.
was that?
Hold on, here he is. Mr. Colin Wood, here he comes. Mr. Colin Wood.
I think it's working.
Okay, I think he's accidentally calling
we hear
me.
you. They say we hear you.
Okay, can everybody hear me? It's working now. Nice. Okay. Take back everything bad I said about Tyler.
Peace.
Colin Wood for the 13th time. Hello. Hello.
Robby,
Yes.
it's working everywhere.
It's Colin Wood, guys. Here he is. Here he is.
Yay.
Colin Wood, tell us.
Live, so I figured I'd call in.
Might as well. You let me call in your show on Thursday.
There's audio everywhere.
By the way, Colin Wood has a show on Thursday night if you want to tune in. It's almost as good as the Wednesday night. No, I'm playing. It's probably better than Wednesday night. But Colin, thank you for fixing it.
Yep, it's all fixed.
Thank you, my friend. All right.
Now I get to keep my job.
You get to keep your job. Okay, thanks, Colin. Okay,
So
we're back
Back to the
rolling again.
beginning?
We're back to the beginning. Well, there's not
didn't
much.
really say much
We didn't really say
other
much.
than
That's all we talked about.
Sunday.
We're talking about questions from
last week.
last week, and I talked about an announcement. This Sunday, for those who are listening now, we have a special Mother's Day celebration sermon time where I've invited a special guest for Mother's Day to join me in the message to speak, give insights, funny stories, illustrations, application. Mrs. Candy Gallaty. Mrs. So Candy's going to be with me this week.
Yay.
And if you're interested in hearing from Candy, you can
be
say
fun.
something in the comment section. Colin thinks they're going to want to hear you more than me.
No.
So, but we'll be together for Mother's Day. We're going to share a message on how and what a godly mother's life looks like. We're going to share from our own struggles. We may talk about the time Candy was pulled over by the police department.
Or
But we have to wait and see.
Maybe.
You're going to have to wait and see. Wait and see about that one. Okay.
oops.
Okay. We talked about a question. Okay. So the question somebody asked was, which is a good question. Thank you guys for responding and helping me here. Okay. I got tons of questions, tons of comments. So thank you. Okay. Here's the thing. The question was, when the thief on the cross, we talked about Sheol and some things a couple weeks ago. When the thief on the cross died, did the thief on the cross go to Sheol, or did he go to paradise or heaven to be with Jesus?
Right.
That was the question.
That was right where we were when we figured we didn't have any sound.
Well, let me set it up before you answer, because I'm asking you this question.
Okay.
I'll ask you this question too. So here's the question. If you remember from our diagram here, Sheol in the Old Testament was where people went when they died. This is what the Jewish culture believed, and they pieced this together from passages in the Old Testament that when a person died, they went to Sheol, which was a place that had, on the one hand, Hades, on the other hand, Abraham's side or Abraham's bosom. That's what they called it, okay? Now, we know in the New Testament, there's a passage where we see both. You remember this? You remember what this was?
The passage where you see both is where the rich man and Lazarus.
The rich man and Lazarus. Remember, the rich man's on this side, Lazarus is on this side, next, and Abraham's next to him, so we see it. So the question is, I'm going to ask you, when the rich man, or when the criminal on the cross died, where did he go? Did he go to Sheol, or did he go somewhere else? What do you think? Some people comment in. One thing we do have going for us
A little bit
is
of a delay, I think, on that.
we don't have much of a delay like we had last time.
Correct.
Because normally when we're talking, we were like 2 minutes behind, I think. But now we are actually, or a few minutes behind. Okay. We do not need more Candy hype in the chat, by the way. You do not?
Okay,
Okay.
so
Yay, Candy. Okay.
yay.
I'm telling you, they're going to want you over me. But anyway. Okay. Anyone know where he went after he died? What do you think, Kenny?
The criminal.
The Theminal.
The criminal on the cross. Okay. So sometimes I combine two words.
Yeah,
on
the
accident.
Sheol.
Okay, so my thought would be, what does the word paradise mean? Like, what is the Greek word of the word paradise?
So you're going very Hebraic on me and answering a question with a question. Very Jesus-like, huh, Jonathan?
Because my first thought, this is the first thought off the top of my head.
Okay.
I will be with you you will be with me in paradise. Like, he's going to be with Jesus in paradise that day. And paradise, to my knowledge, is not Hades or Abraham's bosom.
Ooh, that's a good point. Yeah, the only thing that makes it paradise is what?
Christ.
Christ. So I think you're right. If we unpack the words today, what does that mean in the Greek? Immediately, today, right? Like that day. You will be with me, Jesus,
Right.
in paradise. So we
Right.
have a time, we have a person, and we have a place. So I think he's with Jesus. And I think at that point, Sheol is no longer needed because you remember, they're waiting in Sheol for the Messiah.
Right.
Okay. Now, you do have, well, I'm not going to get into that because there's a whole nother train we can
Yeah,
go
if
down.
you get into a rabbit hole
Okay,
tonight,
let's get to, we're not going to get in a row because we got a lot. Now, let me say what I said earlier. You need to hang around to the end. I went on record earlier when no one heard and said this could be the greatest lesson time Bible study we've ever had. And that's a bold statement because I thought we had some pretty good ones lately. Yeah. But this one I think is going to be the best, and here's why. Because you're never going to look at Joseph, the life of Joseph, again. I promise you. And I the same again. And I got pages I've been studying all day on this. Or not all day, but some of the day on this, okay? And I'm just telling you, it is mind-blowing to me. I mean, this is going to be mind-blowing, heart-racing, palm-sweating, adrenaline-pumping kind of Bible study tonight.
Okay.
And we're going to be studying the Bible, okay? So here's what we're going to do. I gave you a pop quiz 2 weeks ago. And the pop quiz was, if we look at Genesis 37, okay, which is the life of Joseph, and the sale of Joseph.
Sale.
The sale. It's like a sail in a, like a ship sail.
Okay, yeah.
No, I'm telling. The sale.
Wait, what? Are you trying to say like the
Nope.
sale of something?
The sell. Is it sell or
No,
sale?
it's
Is it
sale.
sell or sale?
It's sale, but
It's sale.
it sounded like you.
I was
It sounded a little more country.
little country,
sounding
yeah,
for
little country.
you. is what I'm saying.
Right. The sale of Joseph.
The sale. Okay.
Okay. So here's what I asked you to do. Okay. Now let me explain what I'm about to do. I've done this before, but I need to do this again because you need to understand this. This is why what I'm about to show you should be the reason why we study the Old Testament. If this doesn't build a case in your mind today for why you should spend the time and exert the effort to study the Old Testament, then I don't know what will. Because now, let me just say, studying the Old Testament is overwhelming. There's a lot in there that's hard to understand at times. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of genealogy. There's a lot of story. I mean, I get all that, but there is so
good.
It's so rich. Okay, and when you take the time, the payoff is really going to be worth it for you. Okay, so let me show you how the Bible works. Okay, years ago. Jesus, what I was going to say is Jesus good point, Bill. Jesus went to Sheol. Remember, we talked about this in Peter, and he preached to the captives. We talked about this earlier. He preached to the captives that he was the Messiah. So on one hand, it was a message of life. Preached to the people in Sheol. Those who were captive, he preached the message. It was death, like I'm the Messiah, you miss me. But then life to those who were believing in him. So yes, he did go down there. But I think at that point, and here's another thing, this is what I didn't want to get into. God is not bound by time. Okay?
Okay.
I mean, I know
Or
this.
place.
Jonathan, give me one of those pieces of paper real quick. We weren't going to do this, but we'll
Right.
go on this because this is a good way to think of it. And I use this sometimes with my discipleship group, but I want to just give you an example. Okay, so this is kind of the example I use in my discipleship group. Okay,
This is a side note.
This
by
is
the way.
analog. This is rabbit trail analog, but I think this will be helpful. Okay, let's imagine. I want you to imagine this right here is the beginning of the world, eternity past. Okay. So this is eternity past. Now, it's hard to think about this because it's long ago, eternity past, and it wasn't billions of years. And I mean, we're not going to get into all that. Just remember the beginning, just for example's sake. This right here is eternity future. Okay, can you see that? Eternity future. So this is eternity past. This is eternity future. Now, one discipleship group, this is really funny.
Let me hold this.
Wait, hold on. Oh, you want to
I
hold
don't know
it?
if they could see it.
Okay, you want to
Yeah,
hold it. Okay.
It's got to be.
Okay, one discipleship group I had years ago, we were so into this because there was this astrophysicist named Hugh Ross, by the way. Hugh Ross, no relation to Candy Ross, but Hugh Ross, okay? He was an astrophysicist that was actually a Christian scientist, and he gave his life's work, or I think he's still alive, to the study of time and eternity. He wrote a book called Cosmos, I think it was.
Was he legit?
Oh yeah, no, I think he's
We
legit.
could have
as much
totally
as I
been
know.
related. I mean, all Rosses.
Could have been related. The Rosses, who knows? There's
They're
not
all related.
probably a lot of Rosses though. Maybe
Still
could be
probably.
related. Could be your cousin. You didn't know it. Okay, so Hugh Ross was this physicist Christian, and he came up with this idea, and I don't know how he came up with this idea, that God's in the 12th dimension. We're in the 4th dimension in the world. We're bound by 3-dimensional, objects, and then the 4th dimension is time. And now this is the Cliff Notes version, and believe me, we got all excited. One of my discipleship groups, they're like, man, we're going to read this book together. We're going to get into it. So we got the book, the Cosmos. We started reading the book together. At the end of chapter 1, we discussed the study.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the first time we got together and discussed the study. You had to understand physics and calculus and things that I have no clue, and nobody in the group had no clue about. So let me give you the Cliff Notes version. Yeah, it was over at the bar. But let me give you the Cliff Notes version. And here's what he said. So this is eternity past, and this is eternity future, okay? And this is the cross when Christ died, And this is a point in time when you got saved. This is the day you were born, let's say, the day you got saved. Okay, so your life is on the line of time. Remember, one of the things that's hard for us to understand, and this is kind of a mind-bending kind of thing to think about, one of the things you got to remember is that God is not bound by time. For us, in order for something to happen, it has to chronologically happen. Meaning, tomorrow always is tomorrow. Yesterday is always in the past. So in order for us to get to tomorrow, we have to get through today, okay?
Okay.
It's simple, but think about it. Okay, now, here's how God works. This is pretty interesting. God sees eternity past, eternity future, the cross, and the day we got saved. Watch this, because time bends for God. There is no time. At the same time. Okay?
Say that again.
God sees eternity past, okay? So past,
And future.
present, and future. It's like, okay, so let's say the past, this is what I'm doing here. The past and the future, basically for God, because he's God, he's not bound by time, he's outside of time, happens simultaneously. Okay? Now, this is how you can understand things like, and again, we can't understand this, so this is like us who are bound by time trying to understand someone who's not bound by time. It's impossible. But let's just think about this for a moment. This is how words like foreknowledge, predestination, sovereignty start to make sense. Because God, who's not bound by time. Okay, so all that to say, back on the trail. Could he technically have been with him in paradise? The answer is yes, because he's with Jesus. Now, did Jesus go do some work in Sheol? Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, he went and did that. Okay, so back on track.
We hope that answers your question, Bill.
I hope that helps. I don't know how we got off on that. I was thinking halfway through that, how did I get here? Which happens a lot, which is why I preach with a total manuscript on Sunday. See, if I didn't preach with a manuscript, and I want you to know.
I think they probably understand.
And Jonathan will tell you.
Like.
Jonathan will tell you. What I preach Sunday is word for word manuscript. Now I try not to read it, but it's a word for word manuscript, and this is the reason why. Okay? Back to the notes. Okay, are we ready? Do you have your spiritual seatbelts on?
Strapped.
Jonathan, anything from you before we get on this rabbit trail?
We're at a 1.5 minute delay.
1.5 minute delay.
Be wary of that.
Good. That could be why the answers did not come in.
Yes.
But we're okay with the delay because it's still working.
Yeah.
Can everybody still hear at this point? Because I don't want to miss this. See, I'm a big believer that the enemy attacks
Through technology.
through technology.
Sure.
I'm a big believer in this. I mean, I could tell you story after story of times when I was preaching my testimony and there were lost people obviously there and the whole power goes out. I'm just telling you crazy kind of things. So apparently something does not want me to share this insight from Joseph. But the show must go on, Jonathan. Here we go. Whether they're listening or not, we're going for it. Okay, here we go. Here was the question. Okay? The question was,
Bill says great illustration.
okay, thanks, Bill. Bill's one of our life group teachers and a sharp life group teacher and football coach for Beach High School. So we thank God for Bill. Okay, here we go. Here's the thing.
Where are we? I'm ready.
Where are we? We're at Genesis 37. Here's the question I asked. Okay, this is what I was telling you before. We got off track. When the internet, and I'm going to take you back, but when the internet first came out, it was called something. Anybody remember what it was called initially?
The World Wide Web? Guess not. That's it called.
I guess it was called, but that's not what I was looking for. I've never heard the World Wide Web in a long time. That was good, though. That was good.
That's exactly what it
No,
was.
that's exactly what it was called.
Okay, wait.
No.
So you're saying it's another word?
It was called another word, but it's a picture or an image to describe something.
Talking about the internet here.
Yeah, Al Gore invented it, obviously, if you remember. So, as a joke. I don't know. He says he did, but okay, it's okay. Okay, here's the funny thing. Here's the true thing. It was called something, okay? It was called,
I want to
okay,
guess it.
it's 2 words. 2 words. Okay?
What does it start with?
It starts with S, and the other word's H. Okay, we're gonna play fill in the blank here. Okay, do you have a vowel? Do you want a vowel?
Yeah.
Okay, what vowel do you want?
E.
No. Okay, E. Okay. I'm playing. I gotta tell it to you. It's called super highway. Okay, the internet
Superhighway.
Internet super highway. Do you remember this years ago? Anybody remember this?
Never guessed that.
Jonathan, do you remember this? It was called the information super highway. Okay, this was way before this is when you were really little, Jonathan. So this was a long time ago.
Like what year?
We're talking probably what, the 80s maybe? The 80s, I guess.
We had the internet in the 80s.
I was on AOL. I was on AOL back in I was on bulletin boards. Anybody remember the old bulletin boards you called in? Or you actually dialed in with the modem? Made that sound? Yeah, every time it connected. And then you had these bulletin boards with numbers and letters and back in the day. Okay. It was called the Information Superhighway. Somebody help me here, because Candy thinks I'm making this up. Information Superhighway. Now here's the picture. The picture was that you had this information superhighway of roads that connected together, and the roads were all weaved together and they went off. Okay. And for the first time, what they promised was that we can connect the world to this highway. Okay. It was this highway connected together. Now, the Bible is actually like the Bible actually, I'm going to go on record and say, was the first internet or information superhighway. Okay. The Bible was an information superhighway whereby you're connecting life stories, encounters, characters together. Okay? So when you're reading the Bible, you're not looking at disconnected stories and books about random people around. You're looking for the connections. Okay? Now, we call them keshers. Okay? I don't call them that. Dwight Pryor, my mentor / rabbi, in a sense, that discipled me in this, call them keshers. Another thing is call them remezes. You've heard of this, our friend Marty Solomon. Oh, by the way, that's what I wanted to say. That was the question I wanted to address. Somebody emailed me this week and said, you said that you recommended Marty Solomon's podcast, and I heard on that Marty Solomon quoted Rob Bell. This is what the question was this week. This is a great question. They said Marty quoted Rob Bell, and he didn't say whether he agreed or not, but he just said, I learned some things from Rob Bell. This is what he said. Now, this is going to surprise some of you. I have actually learned some things from Rob Bell as well. Now, for some of you thinking, Rob Bell, who in the world are you talking about? He's not around lately as much as he used to be, but he was a pretty popular Bible teacher about 8 years ago. And then he came out and basically said he's questioning the Bible, and he doesn't believe in a hell. And so he basically left his church, and now he's kind of out there as kind of this motivational speaker. Okay, here's the point I want you to get.
That's sad.
Yeah, it's very sad because a lot of people follow this guy. Okay, let me tell you how to read some of these sources and do some of this investigation, because the reality is this. When I read and study the Jewish Roots movement information, okay, a lot of information's out there, because people always ask me, well, give me a book to read, or give me a website to go through, or give me some article. And here's what you got to understand. Some of the stuff in the Hebraic roots or the Jewishness of Jesus movement is out there. In fact, I was at a conference, Candy will tell you this, a guy I followed. I went to one conference by him. It was awesome. I mean, he was talking about like the difficult words of Jesus. It was awesome. And then he had another conference, and we drove to Texas to go to this second conference. And we were there, and I was all excited. I paid like, $199, I think, for the conference. I'm sitting there front row, and I'd already met this guy a couple of times, so we were friends. And I'll never forget that first day. I mean, we're not even halfway in the day, and he said, somebody asked him a question, and he's like, well, y'all don't actually believe the Bible is inerrant, right? Like, y'all don't actually believe the Bible doesn't contain errors, do you? It's like, what is this guy talking about? He's like, yeah, the Bible's filled with errors, but we're okay with that. It's like, what is this guy talking about? And then I started to realize this guy didn't even believe the stories about Jesus were the stories about Jesus. He thought some of them were made up. So I remember calling Candy like halfway through. I said, Candy, I'm coming home early. Remember this?
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, what do you mean? I said, I'm leaving the conference. So here's the thing you got to do. And here's why I want to say that. Whenever you study anything, okay, this is how I've been able to study and learn some of these things that you don't hear normally, or you're like, man, I've been in church all my life. How have I not learned that? It's because I've been able to teach myself and train my ear. And here's what I want you to do. To read this way and study this way, you have to study by eating the fish and spitting out the bones, okay? Now, sometimes a lot of bones. Sometimes you choke and you're like, that's too many bones, and you get rid of it. But most of the time, you got to wade through, and you have this foundation where you say, that's not right, and you disregard that, and you study and absorb what is foundational and conservative and doctrinal, okay? So, and that's one of the reasons I've written some of these books. The reason I've written some of these books is because I've tried to synthesize all of the information I think is conservative and lines up with Scripture and the counsel of God, in order for you not to have to do all that and get kind of sidetracked. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. I'm just thinking about that guy, thinking back to that conference that he said he didn't believe the Bible was inerrant. So was he not really a believer?
No, he was a believer. In fact, he went to the Hebrew University school.
How can you be a believer and you think you got the Bible has errors?
Arrows or errors?
Errors.
Errors?
Errors.
Yeah, errors.
Errors.
Errors. Okay. I don't know. I mean, there are people who believe that. Okay, back on track. Okay, so the keshers or connections are these Old to New Testament connections. Okay, they're not only Old to New, they're in the Old together. And what I'm going to show you today are connections in the Old, connecting to the Old, not just in book to book, but actually in the same book. Okay, so here's the question. The question was, okay, we're going to put Joseph's life on this side, okay? And I asked you to go on a journey to see if you can find what connects to Joseph's life from the other book in the Old Testament. I gave you a hint, and I said that it was prior to. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 5 of the connections. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, are these really connections? Okay, so this is how I look at it. The first time something happens, it's an accident. The second time something happens, it's a coincidence. The third time something happens, it's a process or a plan or a connection, if you will. Okay? It's a, not process, what am I looking for? Pattern. Accident, coincidence, pattern. What I want to show us tonight are not 1 or 2 or 3 connections. I'm going to show you 5 connections. And here's the thing. These aren't just connections by like, they like give shadows or you know, keshers. The words are the same. And not only are the words are the same, but the meaning of the words are exactly the same. And not only is the meaning the same, but the context is the same. And the significance of the words are the same. And this is why I'm showing you this. In order to understand Joseph, and this is how you read something like this. In order to understand Joseph, God has given us another scripture to give us information on this account. And then he's allowed us to take this account and give information on that account. Okay, so here we go. You've been held off long enough. Okay, here we go. Let me show you the connections, and then I'm going to make all the connections for you. Okay, the first one is this. The first one is, go to Genesis chapter 37. 37, okay? And here's what we're going to do. We're going to start in verse 13, okay? Verse 13. Katie, I want you to read verse 13, and then we're going to make the connections, okay?
Okay.
Verse 13.
Ready?
Yep, read it for me.
Israel said to Joseph, your brothers, are pasturing the flocks at Shechem. Get ready, I'm sending you to them. I'm ready.
Okay, now, the CSB, which we love,
Is that what I mean? Yeah.
what does the ESV say?
It says, and Israel said to Joseph, are not your brothers pasturing the flock at Shechem?
Okay.
Come, I will send you to them. And he said to him, here I am.
Okay, this is what it says. In Hebrew, it says, here I am, okay? That phrase is used throughout the Bible. It's the Hebrew phrase haneni, okay? Actually, that's not right. Okay. Okay, the Hebrew phrase haneni, okay? And it actually is this idea, okay, this is the first connection. This is actually an idea that someone is ready for the mission, okay? Ready for the mission, okay? Now, what's interesting about this is it's a person ready for the mission, and here's this caveat, and it always ends in doom. It ends in doom. Ready for the mission, it ends in doom, okay? That's the first connection right there. The second one is verse 14, okay? Here's number 2. Read verse 14 for us.
Verse 14. Then Israel said to him, go and see how your brothers and the flocks are doing, and bring word back to me.
Okay, the second phrase is go please, or please go, okay? Go and see. Please go. That's what they're saying in Hebrew, okay? Now, what's interesting about the first one is haneni is actually the word also found in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah 6, remember when God is going to send him on a mission, same context, same significance. And he says, who shall I send and who shall go before me? And what does Isaiah say?
Here I am.
Here am I, send me, okay? Let me give you the third one, okay? The third one is verse 18, okay? If you're writing these down, verse 18.
They saw him in the distance, and before he had reached them, they plotted to kill him.
Okay, they see him coming. They see him coming from afar, okay? They see him coming from afar, okay? Number 4 is verse 21, okay? Verse 21, read 21.
Okay. When Reuben heard this, he tried to save him from them. He said, let's not take his life.
Okay, not take your life. And Hebrew can also be translated as don't stretch out your hand to touch him, okay? Or don't stretch out your hand against him, okay? You're starting to see where we're going here. Stretch out your hand against him, okay? Joseph actually is saved, okay, at the last minute from death. It's going to come into play in a moment. At the last minute, who steps in? Reuben. Reuben steps in at the last minute and says, don't touch him. And basically, Reuben is going to play the role of an angel or a protector in a moment, okay? It's interesting because Reuben's the firstborn. And here's the fifth one. The fifth one is verse 25. Go to verse 25.
They sat down to eat a meal, and when they looked up, there was a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were carrying aromatic gum, balsam, and resin going down to Egypt.
that is so good on so many levels. Yeah, the Israelites were coming, and the Israelites basically give an alternative to death. Okay. An alternative to death, okay? And basically save Joseph, okay? Now, here's the question. What is the Old Testament story where you see a person saying, here am I, exact words. Then you see the next thing is, in the order, go please. The next thing is they lift their eyes up to see them coming from afar. The next thing it says in the text is, don't stretch your hand out against him. And finally, lift up your eyes. The answer is Genesis 22. The sacrifice of Isaac. Here we go. That's the answer. Okay, so go to Genesis 22. I want to show you the exact words, the exact phrases, the exact significance, the exact content. You understand, the words are the same. This never happens. The context is the same. The meaning of the words are the same. It's pretty mind-blowing to think of. Genesis 22, the first one's found in verse 1. It's actually found twice. Verse 1 and 11, we see the word Hanani. Actually, it's not E, it's I. It's H-I. Hanani.
You want me to read?
Okay, read it real quick. Watch this.
After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham, here I am, he answered.
Here I am.
Hanani.
Hanani. Same one. And it's a readiness for the mission. He's ready for the mission. Okay? Here we go. Keep going. Number 2. Is there a second connection in the text? Verse 2.
Take your son, he said, your only son Isaac, whom you love, go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about.
Okay. He basically says, take your son or go please. Go please is what he says in Hebrew. Go please, take your son and go to the land I'm telling you. Interesting. 2 for 2. Okay? Let's do number 3. Verse 4. This is verse 2. Verse 4.
4.
Verse 4. Here we go.
Okay. On the third day, Abraham looked up and saw the
Wait a minute. Abraham what?
Looked up.
Looked up from afar. Looked up. Looked up. Keep going.
And saw the place in the distance.
From afar. Okay. And what?
And saw the place.
Okay. The place is also a connection to the past story of Joseph. He looked up from afar, and the place he's seeing is of impending doom. This is the place he's going to sacrifice his son, remember? Yes. Number 4.
Okay.
Go to verse 12.
Then he said, do not lay a hand on the boy or do anything to him.
Exact same phrase. Do not stretch your hand out on the boy. Who says this? Who says this to him? The angel.
Yes.
So the angel basically steps in and says, don't touch the boy. Don't stretch out your hand. Okay.
Okay.
And then what happens? You have this, Isaac is saved. Same thing. Okay. Isaac is saved. And then the final one is, 5 is verse 13.
13 says, Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught in the thicket by its horn.
He lifted his eyes to see an alternative to death. To see alternative to death. Okay, now this is pretty interesting because you see this and you say, well, what in the world does this all mean? It's exactly the same kind of story, okay? And you start to see these stories in the Bible and they start to repeat over and over again. And I think what God's doing here in the Old Testament is he's putting this reflex into the mind of his people that when this happens, certain things are going to happen. Now, here's what I said last week, and I'll give you the connections this week.
So are there more with this exact pattern of 5?
I don't know. That's a good, or they're more like
Moses
this.
with the serpent.
No, that's a good thing. That's probably something to study. I don't know offhand, but I do know that the Isaac story, because we know this one, Genesis 22, the Isaac story is actually a connection to who? Jesus. Because then it has, take your son, your only son, Jesus, sacrifice him, Jesus. The ram in the thicket is a connection. So you see these connections. But here's what I want to finish with, because I think this is the part that really is fascinating, okay? I want to show you the connections between Joseph and Jesus. And I'm just telling you, I was doing this study today. It is so unbelievable. You might want to get a pen out and write these down because I couldn't believe it myself when I started to find some of these connections, okay? Because we're going to study the life of Joseph over the next few weeks. But I want to show you the connections. Now, Joseph is what's called an anticipatory Christ, okay? Do you know what an anticipatory Christ means? Do you know what that means?
It's an anticipation.
Yes. He is a shadow or a type. That's good. A shadow or a type of Christ. I like that. I mean, It's good stuff tonight, I'm telling you. Okay. He is a picture of Christ, okay, before Christ or the Messiah, okay? And I want to show you some of these connections just to see if you can figure them out, okay? And you're going to see them. Number one is this. Both were shepherds, okay? Okay? Both were shepherds.
Correct.
Did you know that?
Yes.
Abel was a shepherd. Jacob was a shepherd. Joseph was a shepherd. Moses was a shepherd. David was a shepherd. And who else was a shepherd? Now, here's what people don't realize. In the Bible, there's actually a false shepherd, okay? In the Bible. So actually in the Old Testament, the rabbis say there are actually 6 shepherds. This is a pretty cool little insight, by the way. Wasn't planning on sharing this, but this is a really cool one. They're actually, I think the false shepherd is in Ezekiel, or it's in, I can't remember. I have it in here. The Forgotten Jesus, I have it. Look at this. Open to the page. I open to the page, Jonathan. I am not making this up. To the page. Shepherd, Jonathan, come verify this. Verify it. Verify. Now I want Jonathan to verify this.
Yep.
Shepherds of the Old Testament.
Wow.
I think we're done. No, I'm playing. Shepherds of the Old Testament. Okay. Here's the thing. In the Old Testament, there are actually 6 shepherds. Okay. The 6th one is found in 2 Kings chapter 3, verse 4. Okay. The 6th shepherd mentioned in the Bible was from Tekoa of Judah, a village roughly 10 miles from Jerusalem. His profession could be translated as sheep breeder, as one who watches over the flock. Some have speculated that the word means royal herd. We don't know if this is for sure or not. Okay, so there's actually 6 shepherds in the Bible. I'm sorry, that's wrong. Scratch that. That sounded good, but that's wrong.
What part's wrong?
That reference. The reference is Zechariah 11, verses 16 through 17. Go look this up later, but this is the false shepherd. Okay, now, why is this important? This is what you're going to see. And again, I don't want to make much of this, but I think this is cool. How many shepherds do we have in the Old Testament? 1 Abel, 2 Jacob, 3 Joseph, 4 Moses, 5 David, 6 false shepherd.
Number 6 is the false shepherd?
Number 6 is the false shepherd. Now, the number 6 is an incomplete number in the Jewish mind. The number of completeness and the number of wholeness is the number what?
7.
7. And who is the 7th shepherd?
Christ.
Jesus. Jesus comes on the scene, obviously, and number 7 that we see in the Bible is Jesus. So I don't make much of that, but I think that's an interesting insight. Okay, for all are shepherds. Number 2 is this. Both Jesus and Joseph had a distinctive coat. Okay? Joseph had the coat in the Old Testament. Jesus has a coat, Matthew 27. But Psalm 22 actually says they cast lot for this kind of distinctive coat. Both had a distinctive coat, okay? Number 3, both were hated by the brothers. Remember that? Joseph was hated by his brothers. Okay, so I'll give you the references. This is 37, verse 2, 37, verse 3, 37, verse 4, hated by his brothers. We see that in John 1:11, John 5:18, okay? Number 3, you're going to love these. Oh, and this is another thing I wrote down, or another thing I searched out. They hated Joseph for who he was, and they hated him for what?
For what he was going to do.
For what he said. They hated Jesus for who he was, and they hated Jesus for what he said. Number 4, both had future sovereignty foretold. This is so good. Future sovereignty foretold. Okay? Joseph does it, that you get this picture in the dream. You see this in Jesus' life in Matthew 26 when he's standing on trial. And then you see it with Gabriel to Mary. Okay? Watch this. Number 5. Hang on. This gets even better. They both are sent forth by the Father. Both are sent by the Father. Okay? This is verse 7. This is verse 13. One of the things that have puzzled the rabbis, and I've studied this last week, they were puzzled by Jacob sending Joseph on a trivial mission, unguarded, to a faraway land. The journey from where Jacob was to where the brothers were was a 4 to 5 day journey. You got to remember this. When Joseph in Genesis 37:13 goes on this journey, it's not like go in the backyard to check the sheep. It's a 4-day round trip journey. Why would he send Joseph to go find and check the peace of the brothers when the brothers can't even speak a word of peace about him? The rabbis have, why would the father send him on a mission so trivial? And then you see it in light of Jesus. Jesus' father sends him into the world on a mission that's going to end in doom for the salvation of the world. Okay? So they're both sent by the Father. John 17, Jesus says, as the Father has sent me, remember this? So I'll send you. Number 6. Number 6 is 37:17. He seeks until he finds.
That's good.
In fact, this is a cool little insight here. Watch this. I don't make much of this, but you know me, I like to make much of things that people don't make much of. Okay, go with me and look at when it says verse 15. This is just a little snippet in the Bible where the Lord's like, let me throw this in here just to see if you're paying attention. Verse 15. Watch this. He goes to find them in Shechem, but they're not at Shechem. So normally, if you're in Shechem and you can't find them, you come home. Watch what Joseph does.
A man found him there wandering in the field and asked him, what are you looking for?
Okay, who found him wandering in the field?
A man.
A man?
Uh-huh.
A man? What kind of man finds a man wandering in the field and says, now watch what he says.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are? He's like, oh yeah, they moved on from here. They're at the next town in Dothan, which is a whole nother, half day or day journey. Some of the rabbis think the man was an angel, a messenger from God who redirects the journey to send him on a mission. Okay, we don't know for sure, but I think that's interesting to think about. Number 6 is he seeks until he finds. Mark chapter 8, Jesus does the same thing. I'll come to seek and save the what?
Lost.
The lost. Number 7. 37 verse 18. They conspired against him. Okay? Conspired against him. Didn't the brothers do that? Jesus' own family and people conspired against him. Number 8, his words were disbelieved. Remember Joseph? They didn't believe a word. 37. 37 verse 19. Matthew chapter 27 verse 27, okay? Or is that 21 verse 27? Number 8, he was insulted and stripped of his garment.
Yeah, mocked.
Stripped, and that is verse 23, okay? Joseph's insulted and stripped. That's Matthew 27:27. I think they're both 27, okay? 10, he was cast in a pit. Why is this important? Because what's interesting is when we go to Israel, we actually go to Caiaphas's house, to the actual pit that Jesus, we believe, was thrown into. This is a really moving time. Those who've been in Israel watching know this. You go into the pit, and what do? You read Psalm 88, which is a picture it's a messianic picture of the Messiah, and it's a picture, watch this, Psalm 88 is such an amazing, moving psalm. Now imagine reading this psalm in the pit in Israel and reliving in the exact place we believe Jesus was in. Yeah. And you read this psalm. May my prayer reach your presence, for I've had enough troubles and my life is near Sheol. I am counted among those going down to the pit. Joseph is cast in a pit, verse 24, 37, 24. Jesus is in the pit, okay? Now, here's another thing that's interesting. again, some of the sages believe that Joseph was in the pit, and they kind of pieced this together from Genesis 37. They believe, and I have a reference for this, and I could try to find it before it came, but I didn't have time. They believe that Joseph was in the pit for how many days? Some rabbi has written this in the Mishnah. How many days was Joseph in the pit? You ain't gonna believe this.
3.
3. 3 days. They believe he was in the pit for 3 days. Okay. We know what happened to Jesus. Okay. 11. He was sold. This is one of my favorites, so hang on here. He was sold. I got 20 something. But it gets better. It gets faster. He was sold by his family. Now, this is one that I love, okay? Who sells Jesus out? I told you to hang on here.
Judas.
Judas, okay. Judas is the Greek name. It's the Greek version of the Hebrew name
Joseph.
Judah. And we believe from the story that the one who sold Joseph into slavery and bargained the price for the sale of his brother was Judah.
Whoa.
Yeah. All right. Number 12. We're almost done. 12. The blood was presented to the Father as a sin. Picture of sin as a sin offering. Hebrews 9:12. This is 37:31. 13. He was tempted in Potiphar's house, but didn't sin. He didn't sin. Luke 4. We know that one. 14. He was falsely accused of a crime he didn't commit. Matthew 16. I can give you these. Jonathan and I can figure these out. I can give them to you later. Another thing about the falsely accused, he never was given a verdict. Joseph was never, there was never a verdict that was given down on Joseph, never a verdict given down on Jesus. 15, no defense was presented. He didn't say anything. You're baffled when Joseph gets in trouble because he doesn't even plead his case. He just takes it. Like a sheep before its shears, the Bible says, Jesus, the Messiah, was silent, okay? So no defense. 16, he was cast in a prison. Okay. We know from John 18, Jesus was put in prison. 17, he suffers. He suffers though he's innocent.
Yeah.
That's what it says in verse 20 of chapter 39. Number 9, no, you're going to love this one. 18, suffers at the hands of Gentiles. Suffers at the hand of Gentiles. Okay.
I have one that you don't have.
Yeah, one I don't have. Okay. He won the respect of the jailer.
Watch my YouTube.
No, ain't nobody watching. Ain't nobody watching that YouTube channel. Won the respect of the jailer. Hold on, Rick. I'm almost done. The won the respect of the jailer. 20, which is it. Okay. Well, how do I get this one? Won the respect of the jailer. What did the soldier do at the tomb after Jesus? It gets even better. I'm telling you to hang on. I'll tell you I got a few more. He realizes surely this man is the Son of God. Okay. He's numbered. You're going to love this one. I'll tell you to hang on. Numbered among the transgressors. Okay. How many people are in prison with Joseph? 2.
The cupbearer.
He's got the cupbearer. I told you to hang on. I told y'all were, you already Candy already tuned me out. When I know Candy's looking back to see how much longer we got, I knew she's tuned me out.
I wasn't looking back to see how much
the
longer.
cupbearer and the baker, okay? He's got 2 people on both sides of him, okay? And here's what's interesting. One turns and one saves him. One turns, one saves him. One man mocks Jesus, the other man believes in Jesus, okay? 22, let's see, 21, he makes predictions that come true. Joseph predicts, things come true. 22, he's seen as a revealer of secrets.
Interpreter.
Yeah, revealer of secrets, okay? This is one of my favorites, 23. You ready for this one? Joseph, after he's taken out of the pit, is seated at the right hand of Pharaoh. Now, here's what's interesting about Pharaoh. When Joseph gets taken out of the pit, it's actually a reverse of the curse, okay? So the curse on Joseph was, this is pretty interesting. The curse on Joseph was, if I could find it. Okay, the curse was he was thrown in a pit. He was stripped of his clothes. He was lied to, or he's hated by his brothers. He was given dreams, and he interprets the dreams. Okay, so he's given a dream. He interprets the dreams. He's lied to by his brothers. He's taken his clothes off. He's thrown in the pit. When Pharaoh calls him, this is another sidebar here. Genesis 41:14. It's in reverse. He's taken out of the pit.
Right.
He's given dreams. Okay, he's got dreams he's given. He interprets the dreams. He's welcomed by his father, his new father-like figure, Pharaoh, and he's given clothes and possessions. So it's basically like God is giving him back everything he lost here, and then he sits him at the right hand of Pharaoh. 3 more, we're done. 2 more, we're done. 24 is 30. This is another cool one. Go to Genesis 41, 46. We're almost done here. We're literally done. Let me just Genesis 41,
Okay.
46. Okay. How old was Jesus when he began his ministry?
30.
30. Okay. Joseph
Was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt.
Joseph was 30 years old. You'd almost think this actually makes sense and is real.
Oh, yeah.
Like you'd almost think the Bible's real at this point, right? 30 years, and then the last one. This is again.
I got one.
Okay, Okay, you give yours, and I'm giving the last one because the last one may be the best. Okay.
Unless you said this and I missed it.
Okay, say it.
So whenever they give the robe to Jacob and say Joseph's been torn in two,
Okay.
they think it says Jacob tore his clothes.
Ooh, I didn't even see that one. Golly,
And
that's
put
a good
on
one.
sackcloth.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so in the temple after Christ dies, the veil is torn,
By the Father.
which is symbolic of God.
Ooh, that's a good one. Here's the final one. We're done with
Woohoo!
that. Look at Candy.
High five.
Nice. Joseph gives. Okay, how does he save the nation? And again, I can go. There's 100 of them. Joseph saves the nation by what? Giving them the bread of life.
Wow.
Jesus says, I am
The bread
the
of life.
bread of life. And my friends, there it is. Now, here's the point of all this. Why is this? Is it cool to see these? Absolutely. I love it. But here's the point. The point is this book is real. And this
rich.
book, and rich and real, and has so many connections. So my prayer is you'll start reading the Bible, looking through the lens and seeing, man, this isn't like a disconnected set of stories. This is a sovereign story that God is weaving together from eternity past to eternity future, which, by the way, he sees at the same time, as we saw tonight. And it's the same thing he's doing with your life. If God, this is what I want you to get, and here's the application point. If God can do this with the lives of the Old Testament saints, and he's still the God of yesterday, today, and tomorrow, don't you think you can trust him with your life? Right? Mm-hmm. And if we can trust him with the lives of these men and women, I think we can trust him with ours.
Amen.
Love you guys. Mother's Day is this week. Candy will be joining me. It should be an awesome time together. We'll see you next week.